civil target is flight 4 Bravo 65. 20 low. Everyone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the post-Thanksgiving and probably current Thanksgiving hangover show tonight. We'll kind of let everybody slip in and say hi to people. Hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Mine was very nice. Tacoma afterward dinner was very nice as well. Lenny is in the house. Mr. Joey, how we doing? My little sister's in here, Jenny. Thank you for watching. Little Twisted, say hello to everybody. Letting everybody chime in. Hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving. We wound up with 6 inches of holiday snow, so Cheyenne, how we doing? And yep, everybody, Jenny Woods is my little sister. So, oh, she even brought her kids. We got my nephew Dylan in here. This is kind of cool, almost a family get together over the air. So tonight, we have a very special guest, good friend of mine. I am going to tell you the backstory behind it. We'll get his reaction when he comes on. So one night during, I believe it was Rattling the Cage show, had our guest on, and I happened to pop in about halfway through the show. And this was in the height of the feeding era. And my name came up in chat, and the question Val asked Obear was, what do you think of the gifting? And it was just like I felt this man looking straight into my eyes, looking at me saying, if you're one of these people who go out and you're screwing peanut butter jars to a tree, you're the problem. What needs to happen to people like that is to be taken out in the woods with no flashlights, no equipment. I'll do a Bigfoot howl in the middle of the night, and then I will leave you there. And if you make it out, then we need to do it again. And I honestly felt like it was just me. I didn't think he meant gifted. And when you see this guy, you can see he's pretty intense. And then what happened was I got invited on another show. I wasn't, as far as I knew, it was just me. And when I pop on, Old Bear is with us. That's our guest tonight. And I about piddled my pants right there, even though I'm on the internet. You know, he's the type of person that I was intimidated by him. And it takes a lot to do that, but just the intensity in his eyes, how you can read people's like, this guy knows what he's doing. And it probably went 20 minutes when before I had the nerve to finally apologize as to feeding him. And he was actually pretty cool about it. So we've since become friends. So just a real quick background on how I met Old Bear and how the Bigfoot does have a good community. So, you know, there are good people in it. And this guy's one of the best. And the good thing is he's going to tell you the truth. Good or bad, like it or not, truth's the truth. So, Mr. Obear.
How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. And if you call me a friend one more time. We're more brothers than we are friends.
Okay, I'll run with that.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's another apology. Brothers, a mentor, you've helped me so much throughout avoid some bad situations and how to handle a couple of sketchy situations. So I thank you very much. Thank you for being on too, especially post Thanksgiving.
Well, yeah, I've been on vacation all week, so I've been out running around through the woods, chasing them things with the big white tails, and so yeah, I'm kind of wore down after 5 days of running through the woods. So, but anyway, I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on because I know I told them, if you got Bigfoot questions, tonight's tonight, and I've already got a couple on my phone from people who aren't able to watch but want to know what's going on. Oh, Dirt Road Bigfoot's in here. Yeah. Guess that would be a good time. We could do a group chat.
Well, yeah, we could.
Well, tell us. I'll let you give background for anybody who doesn't know.
My background started when I was 16. I was deer hunting, of course. Here in West Virginia, I was a 16-year-old kid. I've never been a little kid I've never been little. I was almost full grown by the time I was 16. And had an encounter with a 7.5, 8 foot tall Bigfoot at 20 feet. And it lasted probably 2.5, 3 minutes total. Gut growled at, bared its teeth, curled its lips, took a big step towards me. When it started the second step, I pulled the hammer back on the rifle that I had. And at that point, it thought it might not want to be there any longer. And it took off and screamed at me from probably 200 yards away, scared the daylights out of me. You're 16 years old. I never even heard of Bigfoot when I was 16. At age 15, I had seen the legend of Boggy Creek. Now, my dad was and still is my hero, a superhero to me. And when I was 15, he said, "That's just Hollywood. Don't worry about it." Okay, Dad, whatever you say. So for the next 3 or 4 years, I didn't go in the woods. I wouldn't even go fishing. My dad drugged me back out in the woods year 5 and said, "You're going." And you just didn't, I was raised, you didn't tell your parents no. And that's the way it was. And after I got back in the woods, I started thinking about the encounter that I had and decided that I was going to find out what these things were. So for the next 40 years, I've been looking into them, helping people whenever they needed help. And pretty much my last 40 years of my life has been Bigfoot. So that's about all I can tell you.
Well, we've talked, and one of the more interesting, because my dad was my hero too, so I can empathize with that when he was around. How did you break that to your dad?
Well, it wasn't one of those things. where I got back to the truck that day and told my dad I want to go home. I told him that twice, and I walked. He was within sight of the Blazer we had. It was Dad's, of course, and I just rolled the window down, and dropped the tailgate. Took all the shells out of my gun, threw them in a gun case, put my rifle in the gun case, walked around, got in the passenger seat, and rolled the window up and locked the door. My dad knew something was wrong. So he come over and unloaded his rifle and got in the truck. He started out there, and when we went past the place that this happened to me, I kind of slumped down in the seat, and my dad looked at me and said, "What is wrong? What's going on?" And he didn't say a lot. He never did. He kind of looked at me and he's like, "You need to talk to me and tell me what's going on. Did somebody run you off? What happened?" Nothing like that happened, Dad. And he asked me 2 or 3 more times, and I guess he got fed up. Time we got back to the interstate, it's about an hour and 15-minute drive from where we were back to the interstate. And then it's another 45 minutes to the house. He pulled off the side of the road underneath the interstate, and undid his belt. And I'm a big kid. I was never little. He pulled his belt off and he said, "Boy, I'm gonna tell you one time only. You tell me what happened." I told my dad, and he said, "Are you sure that is what happened?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You didn't shoot a deer. There wasn't supposed to. None of that. You're telling me you saw one of these things in the woods?" "Yes, sir." I never lied to my parents. I knew better. That meant a belt across my butt multiple times, no matter how old I was. And my dad looked at me and he set his belt down between the seats, put it in gear, and started got on the interstate. And the only thing he said was, "You can never tell your mom or your grandma." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because if you do, they'll never let us go hunting again." And that's all my dad ever said about it. He said, "I believe you and I trust you." So that's what happened.
And do you guys ever talk about it now? Or is that just kind of a unwritten rule?
Well, I never told my mom and my dad. And the only 2 times, I only talked to my dad about it twice. About 10 years into looking into Bigfoot, I said something to my dad one day, and we were working on my mom's car. And he just looked at me and said, "Son, I don't know what to tell you." And that was it. I mean, he was simple and straightforward about everything. And then back in 2016 I think it was 2016, I said something to him again. And he said, "I know what you've been doing." He said, "I know you know a lot about these things because you've been looking into them. You don't let anything go. You're like a pit bull. When it gets a hold of something, it don't let go." And he said, "But son, there ain't nothing I can tell you, but I can tell you this one thing." And he told me about an encounter him and my uncle had when they were out fishing one night. They were camping and fishing, and come to find out that they saw one. So he kept that secret for 30 years, 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I know that feeling. Just, but I always wonder what goes through. Everybody's different when they find out something's real that they never believed. And when your dad told you it was Hollywood, and then you're telling them you just saw Hollywood in the woods, you know. So that's now how long between that encounter and then you started looking into them? Was your dad?
It was about 5 years before
Yeah.
I got into it. Heavy. I looked, I went to the library thinking, there'd be something there on them, and there's nothing there. It was all the stuff that you could find on any cryptid back then was a fictional book, and there wasn't very many of them.
Yeah.
They were just stories. And I mean, back then you didn't have computers. You just, you had a library, or you made friends with someone that was in the field or looking into Bigfoot. And, you went with them, whether they were good at it or not. And usually once or twice a month, I'd go out back to the same area. Never heard anything. Tried some of the dumbest things that I could think of to do, and none of that stuff worked. But I ran into a mentor, a older gentleman, took me under his wing, taught me everything he knew about him. He'd been doing it for 50 years, so he knew about him since he was a kid, and that's how I learned how to give me the best chance to find them. He taught me some things to look for, and I started applying it. And I mean, it was, and he told me that there's ones out there that'll harm you. And he said, you'll never know until you run into one. And it didn't take long to run into one that would try to hurt you. And that was a situation where I saw it before it saw me, and I left the woods because the way it was acting. And a good thing, or I probably wouldn't be here today.
Now, I know you typed them, so was that one of the Gugway you saw that was the dangerous, or was it a different one?
No, it was a Gugway. It was one of the ones where they've got the fangs protruding out of the lower lip or the upper lip, and they're a meat eater. They eat a lot of meat. And it was just one of those things that it's just something about the creature. And when it turned and looked in my direction, it didn't see me because I wasn't moving and I was in full camouflage. And just the way that it was acting, something told me to get the heck out of there, and that's what I did.
That was the one you originally saw. You wound up giving a name, right?
Yeah. Well, I got the name from a Native American friend that I had at the time, and he was connected to the Cherokee, the Shoshone. He had like 3 or 4 tribes that he was connected to. He was related to, and he gave me the name of Gugway. And I described the Bigfoot I saw to him, and he was like, "Yep, that fits a Gugway."
Oh. Now, the one you first saw, did you know what type that one was? when you were 16?
It looked more human, so it was a human type. It was a type 3. It had more human features than it did, the ape features. It didn't have a poofy mouth or none of that stuff. And it looked like we do. And the only thing different about that creature is it had a big scar that come down across its left eye and down on its left cheek. And that's how it got its name, Scar.
Did you ever see him again out there?
Multiple times.
Oh yeah. How'd Scar react when you were out there, knowing the hammer could be pulled back anytime?
He would. Oh, great! Now my cat's coming in the video.
Hey, we're a pet friendly show.
Tail, damn. He would bare his teeth and growl at me from a distance, and he would do a loud enough growl to say, "Hey, I know you," and that's he'd get my attention by growling at me, and I'd see him, he'd see me, and I just stood my ground and square my shoulders and like, you're not going to scare me again. And we had a understanding, I believe, between us.
Yeah.
He stays where he's at, and I'll stay where I'm at.
Yeah, just a mutual respect of you stay there, I'll stay here, and we'll be fine. Rebecca, so hello, Brian and Old Bear. Bet Old Bear had a great Thanksgiving. I've heard a great cook Miss Old Bear is.
She is a wonderful cook. She made me my favorite thing for Thanksgiving, and it's banana nut bread.
Oh, didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
That everybody talks about.
Yeah, well, everybody talks about, one person in particular loves her cornbread. I'm not going to name names, but she's one of those Southern style cooks, and she's an old fashioned cook rolled into one. And I'm not as big as I am by not eating her food.
Yeah, that's a sign of a good cook when you got well-fed husband. So what are you up to now? Are you still active because I'm sorry, backtrack. So when did you start as far as dealing with problem squatches?
I've been doing the investigating Bigfoot for probably about 10, 12 years. So this is about year 17. And this lady called. She's an older lady. She was having Bigfoot come around her house. And one night they come down and they'd smack her house, look in her windows. They would whistle at her when she'd go outside to take the trash out at night. They were getting in her trash, making a general nuisance of themselves around her house. They were pulling up plants. She'd plant a little garden. Her son would come out and till it up for her. And she would go out and plant tomato plants, green beans, corn, stuff that she would can. And they'd come in after she got it planted, and when the tomatoes would be on the vine, but they would be green yet, they'd come and pull the green tomatoes off and make off with them. They would stomp the the green bean vines, and they were just being a general nuisance at our house. Trash be all over the backyard or in the front yard. She called me, and I went over there and took care of the problem, made him understand that, she didn't want to deal with that. And, that kind of got me started in helping people. And about 13 more people I helped, or 13 families more I helped over the years. It wasn't something I did week in and week out because I had a job. So yeah, it was fun doing that, and there were some situations that it was a learning curve. You had to figure out what these Bigfoot would respond to in a good way, not in a bad way. Bad way is where they come and start tearing up the house. Good way is where they figure it out and they stay in the woods and don't come in the yard and leave people alone. So, it was a learning curve. I had to go back to one family over all those 14. And it wasn't because of something I'd done. It's because evidently we had pushed those Bigfoot out and another clan had moved in. And they did the exact same stuff the other one was doing. But then I had to figure out, I figured out that it was a different clan and took care of the situation, and it was no big deal.
So how do you identify when like a new, because I'm having that issue right now, so it kind of tied into something I wanted to ask you anyway. I'll get Rebecca's question first, though. Always try to please the guest. Do they mate for life, or is there only one male and female and multiple mates throughout their life?
It depends on the type of Bigfoot, actually. If it's the human type, it's typically they mate with, if it's an alpha male, they mate with an alpha female. And there's only one of those. So it's a lifetime, like my wife and I, or you, and anyone that's been married or been together for a long period of time, it's a monogamous relationship. Now, the type ones, the more ape-like type, they may have one or two more, females that they mate with, but it's usually the alpha male. And, he kind of gets his way because he's the biggest and baddest of the clan. So.
Are there any like think of like a lion where just spreading the seed as much as possible type?
Usually that happens in the ones that are detrimental to human beings and their own kind, which I've classified as class 5s, and I have a name for them, which is genospora, which is another Indian term for face eater. They mate with any females that they can get.
And those are the ones that actually hunt their own kind, right?
Yeah, they're cannibals.
They're living off. The question I had is, how do you tell when an old clan has been pushed out or moved out and then a new one comes in?
Usually it's pretty easy. Usually when an old clan, if a clan's, 4, 6, 8, and they get pushed out of an area, usually when that new clan comes in, all of the old structures and stuff that the other clan put up, they tear them down. They make new structures because structures may mean slightly different between clans. It just depends, on the clan itself. And you'll see new structures in. You'll have new teepees or the little what everybody calls an asterisk. That'll all be new. That won't be old dead, limbs and trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was what I noticed over the last summer, and even the last few weeks. It was like all the old stuff got tore down, and then new, bigger stuff got put up, and some stuff that was on the ground was all of a sudden 10 foot in the air, teepee, instead of being close to the ground. So it was like, what the heck is going on here? So that all ties into, because it's a different vibe out there. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's not just a new male taking over, it's a new clan. When they knock out,
it's a whole new clan.
Gotcha. And then I know you said you did time in the military. Did that help set you up for what you were doing now? Was there certain things you learned to help figure out what would drive you on?
It really did. There's things there's been times when I've had to use black powder and a can, and a tripwire. So that helped a little bit on setting those up, figuring out how to do them and how to get them right so that they don't explode. You don't want them to explode. You just want them to throw a white light out and have white smoke and that acrid smell, the egg smell, rotten egg smell. And it scares them. You just want to scare them. You don't want to injure them. Because if you hurt one, then you got a really picked off 2-year-old that's 1,000 pounds, 900, 9 foot tall, 10 foot tall, and probably got the strength of 20 men. It's not a good situation at that point.
Mr. Lenny has a question. Old Bear, if you know, will a firearm of sufficient caliber stop one of these creatures if it charges you?
Yes. You can use, typically I've always carried a rifle. I've carried handguns, but most of your handguns are under, like your 9mm, 380s, 38s, 45s, 44 mags, 357 magnums. Most handguns are underpowered. That should always be a last-ditch effort to get out of the arms of one. Your big 500 Smiths, the 460s, the 454 Casull, those are something you can use within 50 yards. But it's got to be a big caliber, and it's got to shoot a very heavy bullet. And those handguns, those 3 handguns alone, can stop one. But you better be darn good with it, because when you stop one, you got 2 or 3 more to deal with. Because they don't run as singles. I don't think I've ever ran into but 1, maybe 2 instances where I ran into just one by itself.
And Little Twisted's got a question. What advice for new property owners to coincide with Bigfoot on their property?
Never feed them. If you buy a new home and you're out in the sticks and you move in and that night you hear them screaming outside, 1, don't go outside and start shooting at them. 2, don't feed them. If you put out trash, make sure you don't put out until, the night before the trash runs. If you have to burn it, do it in the daytime and make sure that it's burns everything up. Don't leave anything for them that they can construe as you giving them food. Because when that happens, they become less self-sufficient, and they become dependent upon you for food. And that's a bad situation waiting to happen. I've had to help people because they unknowingly were feeding Bigfoot. And all of a sudden they change up their way of getting rid of trash. And now the Bigfoot are upset. It's like dealing with a 2-year-old. That's never good.
Amy asked a question. That was the same thing I was about to ask next. Are real estate agents bound to tell Bigfoot in an area like some are about ghosts?
Nope.
Because I always wondered if you're obligated to, acknowledge what's going on your property.
Well,
and I know the answer to this one. Cryptid crystal is gifting ever a good idea?
No. Gifting is never a good idea. The only problem you have with, here's the thing. Think about it. If you are selling your home and somebody buys it and you tell them you have Bigfoot on your property, they're going to look at you and you might not make the sale.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Second thing is they may call someone and have you put on 72-hour hold in a psychiatric ward somewhere. Then if you don't tell them and something happens at their home, and you were gifting these animals, food, or you were gifting them little trinkets and stuff like that, and all of a sudden it stops, they get upset. And now these people have to deal with that, and then they have to call somebody like me in, or some of the other investigators that are out there, to try to figure out what to do to get these creatures to stop coming around the home. So it's a sticky situation. You're basically darned if you do and darned if you don't.
Yeah, is it the earlier you act, the better, easier it is to do something with them? Like if you go out buy a house in the sticks, all of a sudden you think there's Bigfoot, you are okay with them being out there but not on your property? Is it easier to set boundaries somehow?
If say you go and you buy a big piece of property, Brian, and you have a seat for your house cut out of the woods, you put a brand new house up, and little things happen while you're doing under construction, like tools disappearing, tools moved, skid steer shoved across the front yard, or it's out there dressed in the yard, and they quit for the day and go home. They come back next morning and it's 50 feet across the yard from where it was. The best thing to do if something like that happens is to get a hold of some investigator, an actual Bigfoot investigator, and let them come and find out if it is Bigfoot, or if it's kids, teenagers coming out being mischievous. The sooner you know the truth, the better off you are. The better off you can plan and get something done. If you wait for 3, 4, 5 years and it just keeps amping up, you're putting your life and your wife's life and your children's lives at stake. Because it can get to the point where them not meaning to kill you, but throw a tree limb and the tree goes through you. Stuff like that can happen. You never want to take a chance on one of these creatures. They don't know their own strength. They know that they got a lot of strength, but if they're just trying to hit you with a limb and they miss the mark by an inch or two, one way or the other, and it goes through your back into your chest, you're dead. And now you're going to end up having the government come in and do what they always do. They'll eradicate every Bigfoot in the area. That's never a good thing to happen.
Aside from your first encounter, what was the sketchiest that you've been
The
taught?
sketchiest.
South when it should have had a different outcome.
The scariest situation that I've ever had was when a very good friend of mine, he's a Bigfoot investigator here in West Virginia. We went to go Bigfooting one night and he shows up with his girlfriend, soon to be his wife. They're still married. The bad thing was she was a blonde and she wasn't dingy. She deer hunts and everything. And she's been bear hunting and all this stuff in the state of West Virginia. And we had her between us, and we had one reach out to try to grab her. That was a sticky situation.
That's pretty darn close for them to be able to reach out and snatch somebody.
Yeah.
So how did that go? I mean, what did you do at that point?
The only thing I could. And that was take its life.
One of those that are determined.
Yeah.
You ever had one go favorable that you actually have a fond memory of?
Yeah. The next to last family that I helped, it was funny because I showed up at their property at like 8:00 on a Saturday morning. I pull in, I get out, and as soon as I got out of the truck, I heard whistling. And I'm like, now they can whistle pretty darn good. And then you hear a whippoorwill, and then I heard an owl, and then I heard what sounded like a raccoon fighting another raccoon, and I'm like, this place is a freaking jungle. Because I was getting all the sounds of other animals, but they weren't making any sounds that they did. And they were being a nuisance is what they were doing to this family. And I just kind of like, it's be pretty simple, straightforward. It won't be no big deal. And I did an investigation. I went looking and found, structures. I found partial footprint. I found, other markers and even found a tree turned upside down. Not a big one, but one about 6 or 8 inches thick. It had been pulled out by its roots and turned upside down and shoved back in the hole. And it was probably 8 or 9 foot tall, sticking above ground. The roots were that far above ground. And I'm like, man, this is going to be really bad. This is a clan. They're staking their ground out. This is their property. They're going to be tough to get to leave. And that afternoon around 4 o'clock, I heard one back in the woods on the backside of the house. I was standing there talking to the man and woman. Their kids were, they had taken their kids to their parents that morning because I recommended they do that. And we were standing there talking about what I was going to do. And what I believe to be the alpha male, it growled and did somewhat of a roar. And I turned around and I said, "Oh, shut up. You need to get out of here and leave people alone." And I went out in the woods and set up some what I call flashbangs, and you know, I did what I was supposed to. Never heard another thing out of them. After I screamed at it, it was like it understood me. It moved its whole clan away. I don't know how big the clan was. There could have been, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, but they left and never bothered that family again. And that one always stuck out in my mind like, did they understand what I said? And I believe they did. I believe they could understand the English language.
Yeah, the fact that you just told them what to do. I said you were intense. I mean, if they can read intent, they probably knew you meant business when you were standing on that porch.
Yeah. I think it understood by my body posture and that I was screaming at it. I think it understood that, and I think it also could understand the English language somewhat enough to where it understood to leave.
Yeah.
And that one stuck out in my head for a long time.
Okay, I got to hear my favorite one though, about the guy who almost blew half his house off because of his clothes. That was smoking the cigar on the porch.
Oh, yeah, the guy that he
I love it. These people are gonna love it. So
yeah, he kind of had he was having some problem with the Bigfoot, and he would always go out in the evenings. He'd light up one of these big Cuban cigars, and he'd sit up there and smoke it. And I think they took offense to the smell of the cigar. Um, one night he was sitting on the front porch, and he was sitting there in his wooden rocker, rocking back and forth, just smoking his cigar. He'd take a puff and he'd blow the smoke out. He had a light on the far side of his yard and dusted on light, and it came on. But when it came on, he looked in that area, and there was nothing there. And said he was sitting there for probably another 4 or 5 minutes, just puffing away on his cigar. And it got down to where it's probably 2 or 3 inches long. And he said, I looked back over towards the light, and there was a big dark figure standing there. And he said, well, these things are, what in the world is that? And he got up, stepped over towards the edge of the porch. And this man, he doesn't have an attitude towards people. He has an attitude when something's ran his wife off. His wife had left because she was scared. And he figured he would run this thing off. Well, he come off the porch with an attitude, and so he took 2 or 3 steps towards it and got smacked right in the face with some very nasty smelling body. Comes from the backside of the, I'll say it this way, poo. Smacked him right in the face, covered his cigar, put the cigar out, and he said it made him instantly sick. He said it smelt so bad. And he's trying to get this stuff off his face, and he got it to where he could get his eyes open. He looked up, and this thing just like was standing there, and it looked at him, and it just kind of went, turned, walked away. It made its point. He quit going out front of the house smoking cigars. He quit smoking completely after that because every time he'd light up a cigar, he felt like he smelt that smell, and it made him deathly sick every time he'd light a cigar.
I mean, that's definitely one way to get a point across. Didn't he wind up burning his clothes too?
Yeah, it ended up, it wasn't a dry poo. It was kind of semi-wet and ended up going down on his clothes. He had it all over his hands. The man went in and took 3 showers. Took his clothes out to the burn barrel in the back of his house and burnt them. Everything he had on, he had taken off, rolled it, balled up into a ball, poured gas on top of it, and threw a match in from a few feet away and burnt the clothes. Everything. Socks, underwear, shirt, pants. It didn't matter. He burnt everything. And, like I said, he went out the next night and was going to light a cigar, lit it, took one puff off from it, and got sick to his stomach. And he put the cigar down, put it out, and after that, he put cigars down, never smoked again, never had another more trouble with a Bigfoot either.
Really? So you didn't have to go out there?
Didn't have to do anything.
Rebecca said you could say that encounter left a bad taste in his mouth.
Yeah, a very bad taste.
Mouth, nose, you name it. That stuff is nasty. I left a pair of shoes out when I stepped in it.
Yeah.
Dealing with that. What do you got coming up? You have any expeditions coming up?
Well, this winter I don't have anything going on. We'll probably go out. Me and my better half will go out and probably go to a friend's place. He's got Bigfoot around his place. We'll probably go out there and probably do a couple investigations and just to go out and listen to them, see what they're doing, and kind of gauge how they're how they are by what they do. The sounds they make. If they come close, whatever. But in the spring, we're hoping to have a camp out again in the spring, and we'll start our usual spring and summer going to camp outs and going to Bigfoot conferences and stuff like that, and seeing what if anybody needs any help or if they want to talk or tell me about their Bigfoot encounter. Stuff like that is just about what I'm doing now. I don't go out and help anymore. I've gotten too old to be doing that kind of stuff. Those hills make my knees hurt anymore, and I still love helping people, and I still like talking to anybody that's got a Bigfoot encounter. talk with them, be glad to help them try to figure it out, why this happened or that happened. And put stuff on my channel here on YouTube, and encounters I get from truckers or somebody calls me with an encounter, then I'll put them out.
Cryptic Crystal has got one for you. Awesome Rare, do you plan on reading a book of your experiences, sharing your knowledge how to handle the certain situations? I think your experience in the subject would be a great idea.
Well, I have been asked that question probably 200 or 300 times. And I'm sorry to say this, but I'm a terrible writer. Most people can't read my handwriting. And I've talked to a couple people that write, and whenever you first talk to them, they're more than willing to. They seem to be more than willing, and they're interested in it. But then 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, they've changed their mind. They don't want to do it. So writing a book is not in my plans in the near future, as far as I can see. But if somebody wants to call me or get in touch with me, I'm more than glad to, talk to them about Bigfoot, help them out as much as I can.
Now, do you think they won't write because of the fact that you're willing to put the whole truth out there and not just spin the narrative that everybody's big and friendly and cuddly?
A couple of the writers that I spoke to, they wanted you to spice it up, is what I was told. And I'm not that type of person. I'm simple, straightforward, to the point. I don't want to ad lib anything in a Bigfoot encounter, because then it leads to people saying, well, they want to go into that woo factor, and I'm not into that. I've never seen a Bigfoot do anything that other people confess they can do. And, at 37 sightings of Bigfoot, you're not going to change my mind unless you show me a video of one walking into a portal, walking out of a portal, or shimmering and disappearing. It's not going to change my mind.
So are you willing to share some of the process? Somebody calls you and says, hey, I live in, Richfield, Illinois, or wherever, and they said, I got a Bigfoot problem. What would be step one all the way to resolution?
Oh, yeah, I would help them out as much as I could. I would tell them, everything, here's what you need to do. You need to go out and make sure it's Bigfoot, first off, foremost. Get it pretty much want to narrow down where they stay in the daytime. They're more nocturnal than they are during the daytime. They do move around in the daylight. They can see just as good as we do. And in my case, probably better than I can. I have to wear glasses to see a long ways off. But they're more apt to be a nighttime creature than they are in the daylight. They need a place where they can lay up and feel secure and have water nearby and rest. And if you can find that, then it usually helps you figure out how they're going to approach your home, and then you can do what you need to do to get them to understand you need to stay over there, not in my backyard, not on my back porch. Don't look in my windows. And I can tell people how to do that. And it's pretty simple. It's not rocket science. I don't have to figure out how to go from Earth to Mars. All I got to do is to figure out how to go from your back door to the edge of your backyard. And I would love to help people do it. It's just people have to get past their initiating their initiate fear of these creatures, and then you can deal with them. And that's what a problem a lot of investigators I have found out over the years that call themselves investigators or researchers have a problem with. They're more afraid of these creatures than the creatures are of us. We have mutual fear. It's just whoever can conquer their fear first. And if you can conquer your fear of these creatures, you know to stand up to them. And if you stand up to them, they pretty much figure out that you're an alpha and they'll leave you alone. Because they don't like conflict. They want to just live and go about their daily routine. Most Bigfoot, 80, 90, 95% of them just want to live. They just want to live on their terms where they want to live and not interfere with humans. They know and understand we have guns. They know this. And people that don't carry a gun in the woods with them, I just hope and pray you don't run into that 1 or 2% that like to eat humans.
Yeah.
And, that's a bad situation. There's been enough people disappear in this country. We don't need to keep adding to it every year. People need to think about their safety when they're out there. It's not only cryptids that get people. There's other animals like bears, mountain lions, all that stuff can kill you. Even coyotes can kill you. So you got to be careful and you got to protect yourself. If you're out there in the woods and all you have is a little multi-tool with you, you're asking for trouble. Carry some bear spray. It works on every animal out there. It'll work on Bigfoot. Just remember, there's not just one. There's usually 2, 3, or 4. If you see one, there's 2 or 3 that will triangulate you and come up from behind your blind sides. So you always got to be ready for the other ones. You may incapacitate one, but you got 2 more to deal with at least. And you just have to be careful. So you need to carry something with you that can protect you, your girlfriend, your wife, your buddy, your nieces or nephews that are with you. If you're out hiking with family members, everybody needs to stay close together. Nobody wanders off into the woods. Make sure you do everything by the book. Do not take a chance.
Another question for you, Cryptic Crystal. Do you believe or think they are Nephilim?
I think that they are related to the Nephilim.
And I guess one last question for you before we start wrapping up. Has anybody ever, and this is one that aggravates me, and I think throws a lot of shade on people taking the subject seriously, is hoaxing. Has anybody tried to poke the bear and pull the wool over your eyes by calling you out to Bigfoot just to mess with you? Or see if they're that good they can mess with somebody?
Well, I had a young man call me. Oh, this has been about between 15 and 20 years ago. Called me, told me he had Bigfoot on his property, had been coming down to his house. They killed his dogs, killed all the chickens, killed the 3 geese they had. And I go out there and I show up. There's no markers. There's nothing there. until we get, and he rides me on the hill. I think they live right here. And I look at the woods and I'm looking around. I can't find any markers of Bigfoot. And I talk him into going further back. And I really didn't have to talk to him very hard about it. So it was kind of, that little voice you hear that says something's wrong. Well, it wasn't a little voice. It was screaming at me. And right about 4 o'clock in the evening, there's this hairy figure that ran across the right of way that we were on. And as soon as I saw it, the gait alone and the way that it was running and the way that it was standing straight up, its upper body wasn't leaned, it was a dead giveaway to me that it was somebody in a costume. And he's like, "Oh my God, there's a Bigfoot!" And he's hamming it at us big time. And I kind of started laughing at him. He said, "What's so funny?" I said, "You need to tell your buddy to bring his butt over here." And he's like, "Well, that ain't my buddy. That's a big." I said, "No, it ain't. It's your buddy in a costume. Something y'all made up. Y'all need to quit. There ain't been no Bigfoot markers. Ain't been nothing." Well, he got mad and accused me of being a fake and all this other stuff. And I said, "Call your buddy over here, and I'll prove to you that your Bigfoot are here." And he didn't notice the markers. There wasn't none. And then I seen one, then I seen another and another. The further we went back, the more prevalent they became. And then I seen a TP structure made out of broken off, broken trees, small trees. And he calls his buddy over, and his buddy gets right in front of this side by side that we're on, or it was one of those 6-wheel Argos or something like that. And his buddy comes over and he pulls the mask off, and I'm said, yeah, that was a pretty good trick you tried to pull. I said, "Here, let me play a trick on y'all." And I got up and done a Bigfoot scream or a howl, whichever one you want to call it, and got an immediate response. And they're kind of looking at each other going, "What the heck was that?" I said, "That's a Bigfoot." I said, "It'll be here in just a minute or two." And he's like, "Oh, you're full of it." I said, "Okay, I'm full of it." I said, "Then tell me what the heck that is walking down the right of way." And it was about 8 foot tall, covered in long hair. And it didn't look none too happy. And his buddy takes off flying down the right of way towards the house. Now we're a mile and a half back on this ridge. And I said, "Sit still. I'll take care of this." I got off of the Argo, walked out there and screamed at it again. It screamed at me, and then I huffed at it. And it stopped, turned around, walked off. I got back on. I said, "Now let's go to the house." I said, "We'll probably pick your buddy up in about a half a mile. He'll be out of air." And sure enough, we picked him up in probably a third of a mile, completely out of air, laying in the middle of the right of way. We had to pick him up, throw him in the bed of the thing, and then brought him on down to the house. And when I got out down there, I said, "Now you've seen a Bigfoot. Now you know what they look like. Don't play stupid games. You'll get stupid prizes." And I got in my truck and drove off.
Ever hear from him again?
Uh, I have never heard another word from either one of them young boys.
Like you said, stupid games and stupid prizes. Cryptic Crystal's got a quick question. Have you ever had any agency types approach you?
Twice.
How'd those go?
Well, the
Can't
first one, um, they pulled me over. I was in a big truck at the time, and they pulled me over in a weigh scale. And DOT came back there and said, "Somebody wants to talk to you." I'm like, "Why in the heck did you pull me over? I'm empty." "Well, somebody wants to talk to you." He walks off. Some guy comes walking out wearing brown tan khaki pants. You could tell he was not state DOT. He wasn't a state trooper. He wasn't a detective. The haircut gave him completely away. He was federal. And he comes out there and he said, "You need to stop doing what you're doing." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You know exactly what I'm talking about, them hairy things." And I said, "Oh, you want me to quit telling the truth? Is that what you want?" And he said, "You've been warned." I said, "Well, let me warn you. Look at my record and then tell me. Then come and warn me." And he walked off. Second time, guy pulls up in a car beside the truck. "We told you once you need to stop." I said, "Look, let me put it to you this way. Unless you want me to get out of this truck, I suggest you get back in that car I paid for and go back where you came from. Because if I get out of this truck, somebody's going to need an ambulance, and it ain't going to be me." And he turned around and got in his car and drove off. That was the last time.
Actually, are you okay on time?
I'm good, buddy.
You have a couple minutes? Because something did happen, and I have a tech question for you. If
Okay.
you're looking on, we had two thermals, and on mine I would see almost nothing, but you could see shapes. And then on my friend's actually showed up cold, but shapes. With the hair being the way it is, I know it probably keeps them cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. Would they
Mhm.
actually show up blue on a hot night, being cooler than the air temp?
Typically not, unless their back is to it. Because,
Oh,
see, in the summertime, they lose that underlying hair, the insulating hair that's underneath the longer hair.
hmm
It gets real thin, and you can see the skin and stuff on their fronts and on parts of their, on their arms. Um, so it shows up better in the summertime. But if their backs to you, they still have that super long hair and it's overlapping down their back and on their legs. You can see the form, but until they turn towards you, you won't see the heat. Um, and that's happened multiple times on people that I've been out with, had thermals. They'd be, even in the wintertime, when they get the underlying hair, it's an insulating hair and it keeps the heat in. But when they turn and face you, you get the heat from the face, and then there's still some heat that comes off their chest and their stomach area. But in the summertime, if they got their back to you, it'll probably show up cold.
gotcha. That makes a lot of sense because could not figure out why it was happening. And then my friend asked me about the hair, and I go, "Well, that makes sense because it's translucent like a polar bear. Some of it at least, right? If
Yeah.
Maybe it reflects because I think on the thermal you always see the polar bear, like the eyes and the nose or something weird
Mm-hmm.
from that. So I don't know. See if anybody in chat's got more questions. I know it's Thanksgiving, post Thanksgiving, so. Oh, can they see IR?
Yep. Simple. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen. And have you ever, I guess, when you're studying, had a favorite that you like to study group, or are they
Yeah,
just
the
kind of?
ones I really liked studying was Scar's Clan. There was a mutual respect between us, and I didn't push the envelope with Scar's Clan a lot of the times. And if I did it inadvertently, I didn't get any gruff for it. You know, you didn't get them throwing rocks at you or standing over there making the monkey noises and you know throwing a temper tantrum. There was one other clan that I dealt with in the eastern part of the state that I watched for 5 years. Once I gained their trust, no matter what I did, as long as I didn't carry a, I carried a rifle most of the time when I was out, and I carried handguns. They didn't mind, but there was a set limit that I couldn't go past. Anything over 50 yards and out, I could be within that distance of it. But if I got within that distance, the male, the alpha male of the clan would walk towards me to get me to back up. And once I got to that buffer zone, he would stop, turn around, go back. I could watch all I wanted, but you better be at 50 yards. It's just his, I guess it was his uh, feel good zone, I guess you could call
Got his safe bubble.
it. Yeah.
Leonard Athos would like to know what's the worst case you had where people were being harassed?
The worst case. The one that comes to mind, a young couple just got married, um, and they were, young couple, what young couples do, anywhere and everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And
So
they
you
had a
investigated
pool,
rabbits.
huh?
You investigated a pair of rabbits.
Well, I don't think rabbits do it that much. Um, they had a pool and a deck around the pool. And one night they were out there in the pool together and they started hearing coos and whistles and other stuff. And it scared the daylights out of them. And it kind of progressed to the point of they were coming to their bedroom at night and they were watching his wife pretty bad. She'd walk out in the mornings to go to work, and they would be whistling at her. Um, and they were making in their way of making comments about her. Now, granted, she was pretty late. Um, but that case got pretty. When I showed up, by the time that it got 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, now I probably didn't get there till 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. In 4 or 5 hours, it had gotten to the point where they were growling and throwing a fit, throwing rocks into the pool. It was like they were demanding their show, their peep show. And finally, I had to end up setting 3 layers of flashbangs to get them to stay out of the area. And once I did that, I had to maintain that because they would test it every once in a while. And it took them about a month of running into those that they got the hint and they left a couple alone. The next step was to go out and start shooting into the woods, which I don't recommend doing. And I didn't want to do that. I don't ever want to do it because you injure one and then you got the whole clan to deal with, including the dominant females. So it's usually not a good thing. But I got that situation taken care of because it was the juvenile males that were coming down to the house, being peeping toms, and got the alpha male involved by going in the woods and, kind of trying to chase one down, which I never succeeded in that because they made me look like I was standing still in quicksand as fast as they can run. But got the alpha male and alpha female involved in it, and they curtailed the juveniles from coming around the house too. So that, coupled with the flashbangs, them running into them once or twice a week, they got the message.
Eventually got it done. Cryptic Crystal's got a one for you. Do you deal with Dogman in any capacity?
No, I do not. I do not want to deal with a creature that exudes hate and fear. I don't want nothing to do with it. I saw 3 a long time ago up in Randolph County, up near the Randolph County, Greenbrier County border. And I just stay away from them if I can.
Oh, who's the worst one, Dogman or the Type 5?
Type 5s.
Yeah. You ever had to deal with them to get them off people's property, or do they stay in one territory or do they roam?
They're a roamer. They're a nomad. They don't stay anywhere very long because if you think about it, you go in and you kill, say they show up at a cattle ranch. You kill 20 or 30 head of cattle, and then you threaten humans and you kill a human, you really can't stay around. That triggers a big response from the federal government. That's never a good situation for any Bigfoot in that area for a long period afterwards. So they're very nomadic, and they might be 1% of the whole population of Bigfoot in the world, but they give them a bad name.
So if somebody's out in the woods, is iffy on Bigfoot, and they start hearing stuff, what stuff they can do to stay safe?
Well, if you got a camp, you want to build, gather as much firewood as you can. Anytime you go out in the woods and go camping, unless you're going to designated campsites like at campgrounds. And even then, you don't want to leave food out. You don't want to do things that the campground frowns upon, anyways. But if you're out camping in a place, like the Appalachian Trail, and you just pick a spot, or you stay in one of the shelters that are on the trail or just off the trail, you want to get enough firewood to last you all night, to have a bonfire big enough to light everything up. If you need to, make several small ones to keep it lit up and cut off their angles of approach. Second thing you want to do is you want to make sure you got some kind of a firearm, bear spray. Combination of both would be best. And you never want to take a chance. Don't let one person go off by themselves. I don't care if it's a girl and she has to go to the bathroom. There needs to be someone, a male, with her if she has to go to the restroom. You need to be within the arm's reach of her at all times. And the reason I say that is because Bigfoot has been known to take women and do unspeakable things with women. So you need to protect her at all times. And the same can be said for men. There have been accounts of female Bigfoot looking at men that way. So you have to be very careful and just don't take chances. If you feel it's a bad place, there's no wood, no songbirds, no chipmunks, crickets, no squirrels chattering in the day, don't stay there. Leave. Keep going. Turn around, go back the way you came. Don't deviate from it. If you deviate from the path and they happen to be shadowing you, they may take that as a threat. And threatening one of these is not a good thing to do. If you have to threaten them, you better be able to go through with the threat.
I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really appreciate you being here tonight, especially at Thanksgiving weekend, old bear. Brother, where can people find you and reach out to you?
Well, you can find me on YouTube underneath Old Bears, Den of Bigfoot. You can reach me via email. And if you need to talk to me, reach out to my email, oldbearsden2019 at gmail.com. And if you reach out to me, I'll send you my phone number. And if you're and you want to talk about, a situation you're in, or if you have a question you need answered, I'll do my level best to give you 100% truth about what I know and what I've had to do. I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm not going to stand there and say, "Oh, Bigfoot's a big cuddly creature." Some of them may be, but you got to remember they're a creature. If you do something that they feel is a threat to you, to one of them, you're going to have to deal with a very angry creature, and you can't handle that by yourself. So if you need help, reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you as much as I can.
And he's true to his word, people. Trust me, because I've texted him many a times, and he has always been there, one way or another, for me, good times and bad. So if you need help, this is the guy to talk to. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Anything you want to part with?
Yeah. If you're out in the woods for any reason, cutting wood, whatever. Just keep your head on a swivel. Um, if you don't, you open yourself up to being attacked, um, because the least little thing can set one off, and you didn't even know you did anything wrong. So just be careful out there. You know, I don't want to get a phone call from someone in your family going, I think my brother or my sister or my niece or my nephew or my cousin was killed by a Bigfoot. I don't like those kind of phone calls. I've got them over the years, and it rips a part of my heart out when I hear that. Um, so just have your head on a swivel when you're in the woods. It's the same thing as when you need to have your head on a swivel when you're in a city. You know, you got to always be aware of your safety. And with these creatures, it's like dealing with a whole gang, just one of them. And you just be safe. Don't take chances. Don't don't open yourself up to where one can grab a hold of you. Because once they grab a hold of you, you don't have a chance.
Sounds like good words to stay safe. Good words to abide by. People listen because they're real. They're out there, and as people have said, they're not cute and cuddly. This guy's a testament to the real reality of what's out there. So, as Grizzly would say, coast to coast and around the world. Well, where we hang out backstage for a minute. Whoop, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, you hang out backstage with a minute with me?
Yeah, sure. No problem, bud.
Coast to coast, around the world. We are done for the night. Have a good night, everybody, and happy post Thanksgiving.